Today is Thursday, April the 8th. We're going to take a look at SAVA because that was mentioned in the comment section today. I love the comment section. We don't get very many, but when we do, there's some nice tips in there. And GM, who's been active for the last week to 10 days, brings up a stock called SAVA. And it's another Alzheimer's drug potential. So we'll look at that when we're done here. The Mcclellan Oscillator moved up just a little bit over yesterday, so we've got this congestion happening here, which is not unlike what we saw back here when it failed to hit the overbought mark, and that was followed by some, going down. So take a look at that. Also read this, I haven't read it yet, the message of the bumpy summation index. I'm sure there's going to be some good reading in there, and I'm going to read it after I sign off. But the FinViz, let's go back to FinViz, looked like this. Advancers over decliners by about 2 to 1, and the Dow dropped at the open and then just continued to creep up. NASDAQ similarly, but it started well above its close yesterday, whereas the NASDAQ dropped immediately below its close, and the S&P just continued to drift upwards as well, a lot like the NASDAQ. But look at the volume. Picked up in the Dow, still low in the NASDAQ, picked up in the S&P 500. So volume isn't there. We saw volume, remember about, I don't know how many months ago it was, we were complaining about low volume. And then we started seeing great volume, and the market was certainly doing fine. We're not seeing that volume right now. The banks, mixed outlook. Healthcare, mixed outlook, we'd say. Consumer cyclical, mixed outlook. Consumer defense, energy, red. Industrials, mixed. I mean, you had some big stocks like Caterpillar, not up. Deere, not up. GE, up. Honeywell, I think that's Honeywell. Anyhow, let's now go look at the charts. And let's start with the Dow Jones. Dow Jones, not a new high, but finished at the end of its candle. Good move, good close. NDX, over the 178.6 for the first time in 3 days. We're looking for a high here, a closing high of 13,846. And it looks like it could get there. I added some more Apple stock today. We'll take a look at that. The S&P closed with a new high today, so that's good news. The summation indexes are both showing overbought. Let's take a look at some of our key stocks. Apple up 2.2%. Into the cloud. Chiku span up over the 50 moving average. That's a big deal. The Chiku span ended today. Well, Apple ended on a high today, and that's where the Chiku span was, so that's really good. Let's just look at Apple on a 5-minute basis, and the stock just popped up from the open and then just continued to climb all day. And the resistance 2, once that was exhausted, selling was exhausted there, it moved up but didn't hit resistance 3 on the Woody's pivots. That's a great stock. Earnings are coming up, I think, April 26th. Double check that. ABBV was up. IBM was up. Home Depot was up, but still stuck at 178.6%. When it does break that, it's going higher. If you're holding Home Depot, don't ever sell that stock. It's a good dividend stock, and it's just powering. Home Depot, Lowe's, we don't look at Lowe's, but I imagine Lowe's looks quite the same. Square is just on a tear, and I had short 250s for May, and we're at 250, but I still think we could see a pullback. Now let's see if we can't see a little Gartley pattern in here. And let's just do an auto harmonic, and there isn't one. So let's look at some Fibonacci's and see what's happening. But where do we want to set our reference point? Let's get rid of some of these green lines here, which were our Ichimoku indicators. Let's get rid of some of the other things here. Let's go back and look at our Ichimoku right there. Now let's go back and just look at no studies. Let's look at this big wave right here. So let's do a retracement from here down to here. And we could see that we didn't come to 38.2. Maybe if we adjust a little bit, we take the average of these, where most of the action was, right there, and we take these and take where most of the action was, right here. We still don't hit 38.2%, but it looks like we should be heading up to 273. So if this is a Fibonacci traded stock, what wave are people looking at? How about this one? Pulled back to 61.8%. That's the golden ratio. That's a key Fibonacci ratio. Found support there. Let's add in the moving averages now. Never got down to the 200. 50 was not all that important. Has only been important in the past a few times. It's not really an important average, nor is the 200. So moving averages aren't really key. Let's look at the Bollinger Bands, and you can see now we're breaking out. The Bollinger Bands are starting to open wider, going up at the top, down at the bottom, a sign that the stock should be going higher. Did not finish outside of the Bollinger Bands today. That's a good thing. Let's look at what else. Back to our Ichimoku. Chiku span is at the top of the candle. This was a big move today, and this is a critical place for the stock to close. It closed, pulled back just a little bit off of its high, and where did it stop? Right at the top of the candle for the Chiku span 26 days back. How many times do we look at the Chiku span and find that it's important? It's important to look for where that's going to be resistance. Now, right now, there is no resistance for the Chiku span. There's only support. There's no resistance on the cloud either. We're just looking at a flat cloud here. You know, flat clouds tend to attract, and there's a red area here, so we're not going to see a tremendous move up. We could see some drifting. Let's think that we might be looking at something like this, and eventually a move higher. Let's look at the weekly and see if the cloud is any better for us there, or more informative. Where is that? There we go, Ichimoku. Why can't we see the Ichimoku on the weekly? That's a little strange. I did not upgrade to the most recent version of Motive Wave. I'll do that before calling them to let them know there's a little bit of a quirk there. They're very responsive. They put out updates on a very frequent basis with tiny bug fixes and compatibility for new trading connections. The short-term, slow-moving Ichimoku, the longer term on the slow-moving, is starting to move up. The faster-moving one is nearing its top, might see a little bit of a downturn, but the overall move for Square should be positive. Now let's look at SAVA. For those who are still with us, here is SAVA. So I did a bit of research when SAVA was mentioned in the comments by, was it GK? And wouldn't you know, today, Motley Fool said to avoid these 5 stocks. GameStop was one of them, and Cassava was another. But not a really good reason, other than this spike up here was driven by a little bit of a open label study, improvements in cognitive and behavioral scores on the 6-month mark with no safety issues. So not a big announcement, but it was driven by a Reddit frenzy. So if it's driven by Reddit, you know, where is the meat? Where's the real reason why it moved up? Was it good news, or was it just Reddit? Now, we do have a base here. We found support on the 50. That's important. We did stop at the cloud. Very little resistance, but we stopped at the cloud back here on St. Patrick's Day. Then we came back, found support on the 50. Now we've lost support on the 50. So I would really be worried about this stock. The last thing I'm going to do is say, why did Motley Fool bring that up? Let's look at the other stocks. 5 ultra popular stocks to avoid like the plague in April. What are they? Motley Fool, whatever you think of them, it's another source of information. AMC Entertainment, don't know why, but I guess movie theaters are not going to see a big comeback. Zomedica got a boost after Tiger King. Carol Baskin was paid to name drop in YouTube. Come on. GameStop, we understand. Cassava Sciences is there, and the other one, American Airlines Group. Let's find out why. Read that and find out why. And then decide if you really think Cassava is a stock to avoid, but I don't see it as a stock to invest in right now. I'm going to stick with ALEC, which is my preferred Alzheimer's. I don't have any inside information on it, but it's my preferred Alzheimer's stock. Why? Because Abbott put money into it. ABBV put money into it, and they have an excellent sales and marketing arm. So that's my little stock there. Said we would see sideways back here and then upwards. We certainly did see the upwards. Now we've got a bit of a pullback. Flat cloud might attract, but the overall outlook for this is good. The SMI is still moving down on the longer framed one, and the shorter framed one is moving up. Sorry this took so long today. If you're still here, and nobody really listens for 12 minutes, I still think the market is bullish, and as long as we cluster in the McClellan Oscillator, that's a good sign. Let's cluster in here a little bit. But if we do take a drop below this point, I would be very cautious.